Hey, what's up everyone? Alex here, back with another episode of the World Othello Championship 2022. This time I'm going to be reviewing the results, just a quick overview and just touch base a little bit on Singapore's performance and just highlighting, things that kind of, that were interesting across the World Othello Championship this time around. So I think one of the greatest surprises, of course, is Mr. Akihiro Takahashi, who was the favorite coming into this tournament by far, in my eyes, and probably by a lot of other players around the world who were especially playing the Fantasy Othello, forming their teams. Even though Akihiro's rating was a bit on the high side, but everybody kind of believed that he would deliver. But this time round, I'm not too sure, was it because of jet lag or condition issues. He flew in probably pretty late into the tournament together with the Japanese team, and maybe he was the main one being affected by all the pressure and expectations piling down on him. Even as a teenager at 17 years old, it could be extremely difficult to kind of play through those kind of conditions. So yeah, but kudos to him, even though I think, as I understand, even though throughout the tournament it was really hard on him after taking a few key losses and facing the fact that he would not be in the semi-finals this time round, even though he went kind of 2 of 2 the last 2 World Championships that he's attended. So I think this time it's probably a great learning experience from him in terms of being able to accept a loss or accept some disappointment, dealing with some failures perhaps early in his career. But I'm sure he'll definitely be ready to bounce back the next time around. So I think one of the surprising one was Mr. Kento Rano, who basically remained undefeated within the Swiss pairing, and also went on to kind of win all 4 of his games within the semi-finals and the finals, and eventually capturing his first ever World Othello Championship title. So he went 16.5 out of 17, and as I understand from Mr. Emmanuel Lazard, is that the last person who ever did that was Mr. Hideshi Tamenori. So it's extremely difficult in modern day Othello to kind of be so dominant within the Swiss pairing, being totally undefeated, only taking a draw against the second place Arthur Zöckner. So yeah, I think it's extremely strong for him to kind of have this kind of outperformance. And I think within Japan, my impression of Kento Urano was that initially he is a 6-dan player, and I wasn't really expecting him to kind of come in and dominate. I was definitely expecting him to come in with a great chance of the semi-finals, but I think probably very few people expected this from happening, except for his sensei, Mr. Takeshi Murakami, who's a 3-time world champion. I think even before the event, he was extremely confident that he would be able to outperform Akihiro Takahashi. So that's quite surprising, and yet at the same time, kudos to Mr. Takeshi for making that judgment. So I think one of the interesting things this time round is that for the first time, I think probably the first time in history, I guess, at least for modern Othello, that I've seen a female player actually enter the Open semi-finals and immediately just freezing the female rankings, and therefore the women's semi-finals was not played as a result of Katie from Finland actually entering the semi-finals. So I was lucky to kind of get my win against Katie back in OWC 2013, and obviously she's extremely strong as a player, regardless of whether she's female or not. She's extremely strong and good with the games, and she was definitely the top Finnish player and led Finland to a 27.5, just 1.5 wins away from Japan. Almost kind of matching Japan in that regard. Of course, I think Kento Urano actually delivered for Japan. And then, of course, Switzerland came in a very close third with 2 of their key players taking 2nd and 3rd place, and both in the semi-finals. So I think that was the key highlights from the kind of top-down position. And then for our junior position, it's interesting to kind of see Remy Tested beating Miyamoto, and then at the same time Fuyumi Okudaira beating Daniel Dufour. And in the finals for juniors, finally it was Fuyumi Okudaira who actually won that match against Remy Tested. So congratulations to her. Just a female junior player coming in for the first time at the World Othello Championship and just performing very well to take home the junior world title. So I think just wanting to kind of quickly touch on Singapore, since I come from Singapore, and obviously I was following closely of my countrymen. They came in with 20 points, a joint 12th position in the team rankings. I wouldn't say it's a bad one, because I think the best performance Singapore ever got was about 23 wins in 2016, but that was when Japan was a lot more dominant. So I think we got a joint third place with 23 wins, if I'm not wrong. So 23 wins, basically got us a joint third place, mainly because Japan was so dominant in 2016 with the wins. So interestingly, this time round, all of the wins were kind of spread evenly across to most of the stronger European countries, and maybe one or two Asian countries besides Japan, and you also have USA over there. So I think it was a very even and closely contested World Othello Championship from the team perspective. And obviously the top three were just kind of like 1 point away. Usually Japan is a lot more dominant than this. So this time around, definitely a lot closer than expected. So with Singapore, I think Singapore, the top player was Mr. Roy Lin Wei Hao with 7 points and 995 Brightwell quotient. And Zheng Wei Niam came in a very close second top performer for Singapore with the same number of points at 7 and 986 Brightwell. So just a difference of 9 discount, so extremely strong performance. And then over here you have Anthony, the third rank Singapore player with 6 points and 990 with a relatively high Brightwell. And then you have Gabrielle, the first time female representative for Singapore, and she also getting 6 wins, which is quite impressive for a first timer, and 940 Brightwell. And then finally you have Calvin Koh, our junior player, who has also studied Othello under me for just a few months just before going to the tournament, and he's extremely new, just learning the game some 3 to 4 months before attending his first ever World Othello Championship. So I think it's quite a good, commendable performance for somebody who is so new to the game. I'm pretty sure the Japanese juniors and also Daniel Dufour and the French juniors would have spent a lot more time than him learning the game. So not that surprising in terms of the performance, but at the same time it's not too bad a performance to actually pull off in your first WOC as a junior. So I think overall Singapore did do pretty well, so I wouldn't say it's a very disappointing performance, but at the same time definitely there would be spaces for improvement in the next round. So yeah, that's basically for the overall recap. I think one of the more interesting ones that kind of surprised me was maybe Vidar Albrechtsen from Norway actually making into the playoff, and he was beating Akihiro and Matthias in the kind of second day and got 6 out of 6 wins in second day, which is extremely difficult to do. The first day only with 3.5, and he managed to pull off a 5th position contesting for the playoff match. Extremely difficult to do. And then I think Lucas De Camargo, I want to just briefly mention him. I met him at the 2019 World Othello Championship in Japan, and obviously he comes from Brazil. And I think back then I actually had quite an easy game against him, but now looking at his games, I did feel that he's improved tremendously across the board, and I think he's performing a lot more consistent right now. So it's quite interesting to kind of see that improvement across players who you've met before. So obviously happy to kind of see that happening. So yeah, I think that's pretty much a couple of key highlights for me in terms of the overall World Othello Championship performance from everyone. So I think in the next video I'll just jump into a very player by player analysis. I would want to kind of follow a few top players, a few key players games, just kind of do a quick breakdown in terms of their openings and maybe their style, just to get a sense of what's interesting in their games. So thank you very much for joining me in this video for a quick WOC review, and I'll see you at the next one. Goodbye.